Two neighbors, same street, same zip code, same year they were born. One retires at 51, the other works until he dies at 67. Same America, same economy, same rules. So what was different? I need you to meet two real people. Their names are Brian and Kevin. I've changed their last names, but every detail I'm about to tell you is real. Brian grew up in Dayton, Ohio, middle-class family. Dad worked at a factory. Mom was a school nurse. They weren't poor. They weren't rich. They were, in every sense of the word, comfortable. Brian went to college, got a marketing degree, landed a corporate job at 23, making $52,000 a year. He got raises. He worked hard. By 38, he was making $91,000 a year, which felt incredible. He drove a nice car. He had a beautiful house in the suburbs with a 3-car garage. He took his family to Disney World every summer. He had a savings account with $14,000 in it that he was genuinely proud of. On paper, Brian was winning. But at 52, something terrifying happened. Brian sat down to figure out when he could retire, and the number he came up with was never. Not yet. Not a few more years. Never. His lifestyle had expanded every time his income grew. His car payments, his mortgage, his credit card balances, they had all quietly grown with him. He had $14,000 in savings and $340,000 in debt. He'd spent 30 years earning more and more money, and somehow ending up with less and less. Now let me tell you about Kevin. Kevin grew up 3 streets away from Brian. Same kind of family. His dad drove a truck. His mom worked at a dental office. Kevin also went to college, also got a regular job, never made more than $78,000 a year at his peak, which was less than Brian. But Kevin retired at 51, not with a lottery win, not with an inheritance, not with some hustle bro side business. He retired because, starting at age 24, he made 5 specific decisions that Brian never made. 5 habits he refused to follow. Habits that are so common, so normalized, so deeply wired into middle-class life in America that most people never even question them. Today, I'm going to show you all 5, and if you recognize yourself in any of them, good. Because awareness is the first step to changing the outcome. Here's the thing, nobody tells you about wealth in America. It's not about how much you make. The IRS releases income and savings data every year. And consistently, people who earn $250,000 a year have less in savings than you'd expect. People who earn $60,000 sometimes retire millionaires. The gap isn't income, the gap is behavior. Specifically, it's 5 behaviors that feel completely normal, completely responsible, even virtuous to the middle class, but that wealthy people treat like financial landmines. Not because wealthy people are smarter, not because they got lucky, but because somewhere along the way, either through a mentor, a book, a painful lesson, or just obsessive curiosity, they learn to see money differently. Let me show you what they see. The first habit, and honestly the most dangerous one, is something almost every middle-class American does without ever questioning it. They trade their time for money, and they plan to do it forever. Now, before you close this video, I know what you're thinking. That's just called having a job. Everyone has a job. And you're right. Having a job isn't the problem. The problem is building your entire financial life around only that job and never building anything that pays you while you sleep. Here's the brutal math. There are 8,760 hours in a year. If you work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, you're selling 2,000 of those hours to an employer. Your income is literally capped. You cannot earn more than the hours you're willing to sell. Now here's what wealthy people understand that the middle class was never taught. Money can work. Time cannot be created. Every dollar you invest in index funds, dividend stocks, real estate, a business, becomes a tiny worker that never sleeps, never calls in sick, never asks for a raise. The wealthy don't just earn income, they build systems that generate income while they're living their lives. Let me make this concrete. If you invest $500 a month into a diversified index fund starting at age 25, earning the historical average return of 10% per year, by age 55 you have $1.13 million. That $1.13 million, invested conservatively at 4% withdrawal rate, generates $45,200 a year, passive, forever, without selling a single hour of your time. Now here's where most people stop me and say, "But I don't have $500 a month?" And I hear that, I really do. But here's the Kevin moment from our story. Kevin started at $100 a month at age 24. He automated it, set it, and forget it into a Roth IRA. He increased the amount by $25 every 6 months. He didn't touch it. He didn't watch it obsessively. He just kept his time for money job and built a parallel system on the side. Brian never built the parallel system. He assumed his salary was his wealth. By the time Brian realized the difference at 52, Kevin had 28 years of compounding running in his favor. The wealthy avoid this habit by asking one question that most people never ask. What am I building that will pay me when I stop working? If you don't have an answer to that question, this is where you start. Okay, habit number 2 is the one that will make you uncomfortable because it's about something that feels good. It's called lifestyle inflation, and it is the single most effective wealth destroyer in the history of the American middle class. Here's how it works. You're 26, you get a raise from $55,000 to $68,000. You feel amazing. So you upgrade your apartment, buy a nicer car, start eating out more, upgrade your wardrobe, take a slightly more expensive vacation. Now you're 30. Another raise. $82,000, new car, bigger apartment, maybe a house, nicer furniture, nicer clothes. $94,000. Nicer house, private school for the kids, better vacations. And here's the thing. Every single upgrade feels earned, it feels deserved, it feels like a natural reward for working harder. And it is. You did work hard. You do deserve good things. But here's the math that Brian lived and couldn't see. Between age 26 and 45, Brian's income went from $52,000 to $91,000. That's a $39,000 per year increase. Over 19 years, he earned roughly $740,000 more than he would have if his salary had never grown. Where did that $740,000 go? Into a bigger mortgage, into 2 car payments instead of 1, into private school tuition, into nicer vacations, into subscriptions and memberships and restaurants and the hundreds small upgrades that felt invisible in the moment but compounded into an entire fortune spent. This is lifestyle inflation, and it will eat every raise, every bonus, and every windfall you ever receive, if you let it. Now let me tell you what Kevin did with his raises. Kevin had a rule. A simple, almost ruthless rule. Every time his income went up, he allowed himself to keep 20% of the increase for lifestyle improvements. The other 80%? It went straight to investments, immediately, before he could see it or feel it or spend it. He called it paying his future self first. When Kevin got a $10,000 raise, he bumped up his lifestyle by $2,000 a year, maybe a slightly nicer apartment, maybe a weekend trip, and $8,000 went into his portfolio. Every year, on repeat. The wealthy don't live like monks, they enjoy their money. But they treat lifestyle upgrades like a controlled dial, not a fire hose. The middle class, by contrast, almost universally lets lifestyle expand with income automatically, because that's what everyone around them does. Because that's what the car commercial is designed to make you do. Because that's what social media shows you everyone else is doing. Here's the most dangerous phrase in the English language when it comes to money. I deserve this. Not because you don't, but because it shuts off the analytical part of your brain and opens the emotional part. And emotional spending is how fortunes disappear one I deserve this at a time. All right? Habit number 3. This one hits hard because it's been aggressively marketed to the American middle class as completely normal. Borrowing money at high interest rates to buy things that immediately lose value. I'm talking about cars, furniture, electronics, vacations put on credit cards, clothes bought on store credit. The American middle class is drowning in what I call depreciating debt, Debt attached to things that are worth less the moment you buy them. Let me show you how devastating this actually is. The average new car payment in the United States right now is $735 a month. $735 every month? Most people look at that and think, okay, that's what a car costs, but let's look at what that actually means for your wealth. $735 a month at 7% interest on a 72-month loan means you'll pay roughly $53,000 for a car that may be worth $28,000 when you're done paying it. You spent $25,000 in interest and depreciation to own something worth half what you paid. And then, for most middle-class Americans, the cycle repeats. The loan ends and they immediately get another car. Because that's what everyone does. Because the dealership makes it easy. Because the monthly payment feels manageable even when the total cost is catastrophic. Now here's what wealthy people do differently. It's not that wealthy people don't drive nice cars. They do. But they think about cars and cars and all depreciating assets completely differently. Many wealthy people buy used cars with cash, or they lease strategically for business purposes where the cost is deductible. More importantly, they refuse to go into high-interest debt for anything that loses value. They use debt as a tool, specifically for things that can appreciate or generate income. Real estate, business equipment, education that demonstrably increases earning power. They never use debt as a lifestyle shortcut. The middle class has been trained to think in terms of monthly payments instead of total cost. Can I afford the payment? Middle class thinking. What is this actually costing me, and is this the best use of this money? Wealthy thinking. Here's a reframe that changed everything for Kevin. Every time he considered a purchase financed by debt, he asked himself one question. Is this thing going to be worth more or less than I pay for it? If less, he saved up and paid cash, or he didn't buy it. Simple, brutal, effective. While Brian was paying $735 a month for a depreciating asset, Kevin was driving a 4-year-old Toyota Camry he bought for $16,000 cash and investing the difference. The $735 Brian spent on a car payment invested at 10% over 20 years? That's $556,000. Brian didn't just buy a car. He bought a car and sold $500,000 of future wealth to do it.